Good day, everyone. I am G. Mariel L. Gaputan and I am your facilitator for this topic. We all know that the MTB-MLE program is really concerned with the contextualized learning of students. That is why instructional support materials that promote literacy in the MTB-MLE program is very relevant. And the biggest consideration in creating and using these learning materials are the language, level, culture, and context of the first language learners, especially to our beginning readers. As future educators, it is very important for us to learn all about this, since through this, we will be able to create, use, teach these materials that will build on the learner's language and culture, while also ensuring that the curriculum-based competencies are attained and mastered. The Department of Education found the need to synchronize and decentralize the production of indigenized teaching and learning materials, monitoring, evaluation, and research for the implementation of this MTB-MLE. Why is this important? If we can remember, MTB-MLE is contextualized, and considering the differing languages of the learners from all over the Philippines, it should really be considered. The Department of Education wants to decentralize this, and while decentralizing this also means synchronization of all the efforts to make MTB-MLE implementation successful. That is why the Department of Education, or DepEd, issued these guidelines on the utilization of downloaded funds for material development and production of mother tongue-based multilingual education, or the MTB-MLE program. And on these guidelines resides the production of the indigenized teaching and learning materials, the monitoring, the evaluation, and the research for the implementation of this MTB-MLE, just like what I said from the last slide. According to the guidelines, these are the type of print materials to be developed and reproduced. These are storybooks, flash or activity cards, basic sight words, and thematic picture chart. And now we proceed to the part where we delve into the examples and the variations of these print materials. For this time, all of us will be introduced to the 8 instructional support materials to promote literacy. These are big books, small books, alphabet chart, alphabet primer, picture file, activity cards, chart stories, and realia. First up, let's go to the big books. We are quite familiar with this because we used it in our subject for teaching edukasyon sa pagpapakatao last summer. And now we will know in detail what really are big books and what are these features of the big books. When we hear the word big books, we associate it with something, a big book. And that association is actually right. Big books are oversized books with enlarged prints. And why is there a need for teachers to have big books in the classroom, especially for learners from grade 1 to grade 3? This is because big books are usually intended for shared reading activity for the whole class, simply because the whole class can see it compared to the small books. With its enlarged prints, the whole class can really see what is happening in the story. And according to Holdaway, big books fosters natural literacy development according to Holdaway. And now the question is, Why do we always see big books in classrooms of grade 1 to grade 3 levels? This is because it is considered the best in promoting literacy for reasons like these. Number one, it fosters skill of reading, such as concept about print, left to right reading direction, and the like. It also encourages children to imitate, especially if it is modeled by the teacher, and join with literate behavior, knowing that the classmates of his or hers are also listening to and imitating too. It also promotes a non-threatening condition, since it does not pressure the learners to read it individually, out loud with her or his classmates, only listening to him or her. Aside from these, big books also promote quiet, intense concentration as the learners focus on the text that the teacher tracks, as well as the illustrations that suggest meaning of the text. Later, we will know the events in the big book in which we can tell that the teacher really tracks what he or she is reading. And lastly, just like the non-threatening condition, it also fosters non-competitive and cooperative learning, where the learners can work together, learn together, and read together with their classmates. Before we proceed to the events of the big books, we first tackle about the features of a big book. First is that a big book must have enlarged text, extra spacing between words, and limited print. As what we also have learned from Mr. Kilesta's class last semester, the print is really according to the level of the students. And since this instructional material is big book, we are told that the big books have limited print. And there's also these clear connections between the words and the pictures for children or for learners to make meaning of the text. Another feature of the book, big book rather, is the repetition of words in the text. There is also what we call rhyme and rhythm, especially because they are children, and making that story engaging, interesting, fun, and easily remembered through rhyme, rhythm, the plot, the pictures, and the text will benefit the learner's learning. And lastly, the predictable text. And here we come with the big books event. The first event, or the occasion when we can use the big book, is through shared reading. From the word shared, we can easily associate that the teacher and the children read together. And how can this help them learn to read? This can help them learn to read by reading and seeing their classmates and the teacher also read. And the main goal for shared reading should be reading for meaning. If we can remember the importance of the connection of pictures and print, and also enjoyment. If you can also remember, it is also in accordance with the two-track approach in the meaning track, where the children are not only limited to reading, but reading with meaning, matching the text with the pictures in small books and big books. And if you can remember also, it was also mentioned that one thing that we can do to be successful in that is to do hide a word and match word. Also, in shared reading, it is also important that the stories we share with our students is with impact and excitement, a good plot, interesting pictures that support the text, rhyme, rhythm, and repetition. These are the advantages of using shared reading in our classrooms. While it promotes community of reader, it also promotes developing reading strategies, the awareness of print, the connection of word and the text, and the pictures, their fluency in reading, their understanding in reading, and the words help them expand their vocabulary. And now what we have here is the next big book event called the modeled reading, where we can associate with the word model that means teacher only. And the advantages of these are the model of reading fluency with expression by the teacher helps them practice that and keep that in mind. It also develops story comprehension. The concept and vocabulary will be enriched, and sophisticated story syntax will be presented to the students. It also encourages prediction, especially if the teacher asks the students first before proceeding to the next. And lastly, it fosters enthusiasm for reading. And now we move on to the third big book event, which is the guided reading, where the similar strengths and needs of children are the basis for their groupings, and they are given by the teacher appropriate text to target specific reading strategies. Through this, the students can use a variety of reading strategies, develop comprehension also, independent reading, strengthens thinking skills, work on specific reading skills, and sight word vocabulary. There is this also an event in the big book where we call independent reading, and we can associate this with the word independent to solo, where the children can just roam around to the classroom and be exposed with a printed symbol of language anytime they want. And since it is not really the part where they can interact with their teacher or their classmates, it is an extension of reading fluency, and the way they recognize the words will develop their automaticity. And the way they see the word, they also develop their writing. And since it is voluntary, it promotes reading for enjoyment and information. And lastly, it fosters self-confidence. And now we proceed with the small books. Small books, from the word small, is the reduced version of the big books. They usually measure 6 inches by 6 inches. And these can be used in guided reading, which is also an event that we discussed a while ago, where again the teacher considers the similarity of strengths and needs of the students, and she or she group them together and target specific reading strategies. The focus of small books is the mastery of reading strategies and the elements of literature, such as on a more technical but not so technical terms in literature, where this teacher asks the students. We have here a sample format for the guided reading session using small books. The first one is story introduction. Here the teacher reads the title of the author and, of course, the illustrator's names, and also about the cover. For example, the teacher can ask, "What do you see in the cover of the picture of this book? What are your ideas what the story is all about?" And after that, the teacher can proceed to the second part, the story walk or the picture talk, where the teacher assesses the children's prior knowledge and asking them questions that may relate to what the story is all about, and let the teacher and the students talk about what may happen in the storyline with the cover, pictures, and text that they see. And then in the third part, the first reading of the story, in this, the teacher holds a copy of the small book, and he or she models the reading with the inclusion of language patterns, the concepts about print, and after that, the teacher can distribute the copies of small books. The teacher then allows the students to read silently and ask focused questions after. And while doing so, in the reading part, the teacher guides the students and assists them. The teacher can then discuss the meaning of the text and invite children to read aloud the confirmed answers to the focus questions. And in the second reading, then, this time each child has a copy of the small book. And on the second reading here, you can have the children read aloud simultaneously or quiet but simultaneously, or to add prompt and praise children's reading strategy and their awareness of concepts of print. And from here, you can discuss the story, talk about the literary elements of the story, such as the characters, the plot, the problem, the ideas and feelings that connect it to the children's life. And then you can also present the skill lesson, highlight the sight words for the story. And lastly, we have the independent practice or follow-up activities where you can have children read independently or in pairs, or have children read chorally and ask children to respond in writing. And as you can see, and as you have observed, truly the small books allow the children to identify the literary elements, as what I have mentioned from the previous slide. Next up, the alphabet chart. The picture here on the right shows an alphabet chart, and the alphabet chart can easily be generated when there is an accepted and well-established orthography or way of writing in our respective dialects that we use, especially here in the Philippines that we have diverse dialects. And we can see here that the alphabet chart is made up of big letters along with their small letters, plus a representative image and the name of the image printed below. Can you label these features from a letter here in the alphabet chart? You can pause this video and try to identify. Some of the advantages are letter recognition. We can see that. The alphabet knowledge, the letter order since they can see it all together, phonological skills, the sound of the letters, and picture identification. Next, we have the alphabet primer. The picture on the right side shows the alphabet primer. The alphabet primer is an extension of the alphabet chart. As teachers, we may first use the alphabet chart, then the alphabet primer for specific uses, especially for beginner readers. It is also called the Sound of Language book, and it is in booklet form. The emphasis in the primer are the sounds that are associated with the symbols or the letters, and on how to put the sounds together to read the words and sentences on a thin printed page. Now let's go through the parts of the alphabet primer. So first we have here the key symbol, which is identified as here. Next, the key picture, which uses the symbol. Here's the key picture. And the keyword, the word that is represented by the picture, using the key symbol. In this part, we have U. The key picture, we have a mushroom. And in Bisaya, keyword, it is uhong. And it uses the word or the symbol U. And here we also have the syllable boxes where we separate this into syllables, uhong, uhong. And breaking the word, here we break the word, just like this in syllable boxes. And making the word from the big box. This is the big box here. We can see this. And we make the word by using the key symbol and partnering it with the different extensions. So as it results into uma, ulan, and utan. Also, the children would understand how these are used in a sentence because of these parts: sentence making word and key sentence. May uhong sa uma. Nag-ulan sa uma. You may pause this video so that you can really identify the parts of the alphabet primer and realize its importance on the children's literacy for the mother tongue. Next up, we have the picture file. The picture files can be a prompt for oral discussion, and it can be pictures of basic concepts such as parts of the body, the market, the familiar things that the children are familiar with. And these are its advantages. It is a good way to kickstart the discussion since we build on the prior knowledge of the students. And we discuss things that are common to the context of the students that they see and feel or experience every day. Next is the activity cards. The activity cards are used to generate instructional games, and these are the skills which can be developed through the use of activity cards. For example, in the picture of a nose, if you have it as in your activity card, you can flash this and you can have children repeat, as well as you can let touch their own noses. Or maybe you can use it as a thing and let them get it in their bag, and many other things that can be used as instructional games. Next, we have the chart stories. Chart stories are charts that contain stories in only a page. And in here, we can see that pictures are bigger than words. And because of this, children can be asked what will happen in the story, basing from the pictures. And because of this, they can develop a spontaneity as they repeat their experience from their prior knowledge. And this can be used in shared reading. An example of a chart story is here. And finally, last but not the least, is realia. The realia are simply the objects that are real objects. And in these times, we take them out from pictures, from stories, and concepts in the classroom. Because through this instructional material, we are able to let them get out of the classroom and experience things in its purest form. For example, instead of explaining to them the parts of the flower, you can take them outside of the classroom and into the garden of the school and let them see for themselves what are really the parts of the flower. In this way, they're using their senses. Those are the instructional support materials to promote literacy. Again, those are the big book, small books, alphabet chart, alphabet primer, picture file, activity cards, short stories, and realia. I hope that you have learned something new for today, and I hope that we can use it in future instances. Thank you.